How you guys doing? How you guys doing? Reparations. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about reparations. Do you believe in it or do you not believe in it? Tell me. I want to know. What do you believe in it when you come to think about reparations? Now, I reported on my channel several times that there's going to be some reparations paid out for foundational Black Americans in California. We've actually got a dollar amount now. Now, I'm just curious as to if you believe in it or you don't believe in it. And if not, I want to know, what is your argument? What is your argument as to why reparations should not be paid out? I'm just curious. What is your argument? I want to know, why do some people believe that reparations should not be paid out? Because I believe that they should be paid out for the greatest crime in human history. I believe that everyone across the world owes Black people, every country out there owes Black people some kind of money. Now, it may not be necessarily to Black Americans in terms of foundational Black Americans, but it certainly needs to be paid out to people who were oppressed by the dominant white society across the planet. I don't think that one country should have to pay out reparations to all Black people, but I do think that for the damage done, it should be paid out. I do think that in America, it should be paid out to Black descendants of American slavery here, of the slave trade that actually happened here, and that in places like Haiti, it should be the French who paid back the Haitians, and also it should be the Dominican Republic for currently oppressing the Haitians. I think that in Jamaica, it should be the British. I think over in Australia, the Australian Aborigines, they have a claim because they were oppressed. So my thing is that right now what you having is a bunch of people who realize reparations are going to be paid out. And so we are going through the 5 stages of grief when it comes to reparations and people who disagree with it. They're going through the 5 stages of grief when it comes to that. Right? Now, when I say that, let me explain to you. People realize it's going to be paid out. So they have to deny and troll and do all that stuff. And so let me explain to you. I'm not a psychologist, but I do have a degree in psychology. So let me explain to you. There's 5 and there's also 7 stages of grief. So when it comes to people who deny reparations, who's trying to go against it, there's 5 essential stages. We're not going to go with 7, 5. Okay. The first stage that we go through is denial. Now, denial can look like avoidance, procrastination, forgetting, easily distracted, mindless behaviors, keeping busy all the time, thinking, saying, I'm fine or it's fine. And what it can feel like is shock, numbness, confusion, and shutting down. So people who are against reparations, they are denying it. Now, they're saying, oh, it's not going to get paid out. And then when I start reporting things and videos start going viral, then that's when we get into the anger, right? Anger. That is the second stage of grief here. Anger. It can look like pessimism, cynicism, sarcasm, irritability, being aggressive or passive aggressive, getting into arguments or physical fights, increased use of substances. It can feel like frustration, impatience, resentment, embarrassment, rage, feeling out of control. So many of these people who are going against reparations, you will notice very, very similar arguments. You know, things like they will come across like they resent Black people because they're going to get it. There's sarcasm. Oh, you guys are just going to spit it on rims. You know, sarcasm, pessimism. Oh, is this going to destroy America? You know, irritability. You know, them just lashing out, being aggressive, being really, really regressive or passive aggressive. You know, trolling. Trolling can be anger too. Trolling is also a means of denial. So you have the first and second stage. Now, the third stage of people who go against reparations, in terms of the stages of grief, you have bargaining. Bargaining can look like ruminating on the future or past, overthinking or worrying, comparing self to others, predicting the future and assuming the worst, perfectionism, thinking, saying, I should have, or if only, judgment towards self and or others. And it can feel like guilt, shame, blame, fear or anxiety, insecurity. Now, bargaining, this doesn't just affect some of the people who are non-Black, who are going against reparations, right? You have people out there who are black, who are trying to predict the future and assuming the worst. Like they're saying, oh, it's never going to get paid. It's never going to get paid. Assuming the worst, or they will engage in perfectionism. And if you want to see what I'm reading from, I'm going to show you. This is about the stages of actual grief. And I'm reading this from Washington.edu, the University of Washington. And this is the stages of grief. So we're going to read this for people who are having trouble talking about reparations, and some of the people who are going against it. This is what they are experiencing. I want you guys to tap the screen, give me some likes, share the screen, because we went through the first and second stage, right? So the first stage for people who deny reparations is denial. They're going to flat out deny it. Second stage is anger, because they know it's coming, so they're going to lash out in anger. Anger can be trolling. Anger can be attacking the person personally. It doesn't matter. Now we get into bargaining. Bargaining is when people start saying, well, what about this group? And what about that group? That's when you start bargaining. Bargaining stage, that's when you pretty much accept it's going to happen a little bit, but you haven't fully done it, and you're hoping that you can undermine reparations, so you start bargaining. Things like, what about the Irish? Stuff like that, myths. Things like, well, what about this group and that group and Native Americans and that group? They start bargaining because they know what's going to happen. We've reached the bargaining stage of reparations. That's where we're at now. People are saying, well, this is going to crush the economy. They want perfectionism. As you can see, that's one of the stages of grief when it comes to bargaining, right? Judgment towards self and others. Like people saying things like, well, we're only going to buy rims with it. That's bargaining. That's bargaining. Because what you're actually seeing there is fear and anxiety. That's fear. That's fear and anxiety. Now, when you go down here to the fourth stage, depression. We're going to enter that stage probably in another couple of months here when California starts wrapping things up. So depression, it can look like sleep, appetite changes, reduced energy, reduced social interest, reduced motivation, crying, and increased use of substances. It can feel like sadness, despair, helplessness, hopelessness, disappointment, overwhelmed. So this is going to be the next stage that we're going to reach when we actually get reparations payments in California and in other states, and when it's actually eventually, and when it's approved by the federal government. It's definitely coming. There's no argument against it. So what people like Archer are engaging in, right, is the third stage, which is bargaining. He's still bargaining because trolling is a form of bargaining. All right. So depression. Now we're going to hit the final stage, which is acceptance. Acceptance can look like mindful behaviors, engaging with reality as it is. This is how it is right now, being present in the moment, able to be vulnerable and tolerate emotions, assertive, non-defensive, honest communication, adapting, coping, responding skillfully. It can feel like good enough, courageous, validation, self-compassion, pride, and wisdom. And you see, people who go against reparations, they are also engaging in a lack of self-compassion. Because by repairing Black America, you repair America. So you have to have some pride in your own country. See, I want my countrymen who happen to be Black to get some money. You have no problem with other people in other countries getting cash. Why not us? What's the issue with that? See, and if you respond to something that's like real trolly, something that's real quick, something that's not really thought out, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm just going to say that's the third stage of grief, bargaining. We've been over this. So that is the 5 stages of grief for people out there who don't think reparations are going to be paid out, because they are. Now, I'm discussing this. This is not so much, this is not so much me trying to, get some trolls on here to have a conversation with. Not really. It's happening. It's just what form it's going to take. That's the whole question now at this point. And to be quite honest with you, I want cash only. I prefer mine in gold because I can stack that easy. And I can watch that easy. I don't trust your banks. I use banks. That doesn't mean I necessarily care to. It's kind of like a necessity. You feel me? So with that being said, you mean reparations are going to be paid out in California? They're talking about $223,000 per black descendant of American slaves. And with that being said, when it's paid out, if you want to know if we're square, you pay it out. For some black people, it won't be square, but for a lot of us, it will be, and that's good enough, right? But with that being said, people are trying to link reparations to political mindset. That's not how it works. When you go into a courtroom, a judge is not going to ask you, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Judge not going to ask you, what side of the aisle are you going to lean on? A judge is not going to ask you, what are you going to spend the money on? The judge is not going to ask you, hey, okay, for the people out there who say, well, my family had nothing to do with it and I had nothing to do with slavery. Interesting. So when the police misconduct settlements are made, right? Is it one taxpayer or all taxpayers that the money comes from? And if you can't answer that question directly, I don't want you to make comments like that in the chat, because I'm going to ask the mods to remove you. Yeah. You have to answer that question before you can make that kind of comment ever again. Right? So my thing is that if you're going to come in and try to argue that that people shouldn't have to pay reparations payments because they had nothing to do with slavery. Well, the thing is that I don't have anything to do with any of the foreign conflicts that we keep getting involved in. Right? I have nothing to do with that, but yet I'm paying for that. And like I said, if you just come with some trolly comments, I'm just not going to respond to that. I'm just going to tell the mods to remove you. And yes, to Tigers 5352, yes. The same way as I'm told to do that with police misconduct settlements. Absolutely. And if you don't like that, then that's what it is. Affirmative action is not reparations. I don't want that mentioned in the chat ever again. I'm not going to go over the reason why. I've already explained it various times, and you know the reason why. It doesn't benefit us in the majority. It benefits. Look it up. So $200,000 plus isn't enough for the cause. If that is the complete payout, it's not enough. I agree, but it's a start. I'll take it. All right. Now, people who may not have benefited from who may not have engaged in slavery still benefited from it, right? Tiger says, well, it's tough when you have 100 characters to respond. Sorry, bud. Be creative. How about we just give you $1 billion? Nope, that's not good enough. It's a start. Yes, we worked 400 years and ain't got one penny. Yes, absolutely. So affirmative action. I'm going to explain this one time and one time only. Affirmative action doesn't benefit black people in the majority. It benefits white women in the majority. That's the case. I won't say that again. If you don't understand that, go look it up. You're on your phone or you're on some kind of device, you can look it up pretty easily. I refuse to do it again. I've done it almost every live stream, and I won't do it again. So with that being said, affirmative action doesn't benefit us. It benefits mostly white people, particularly white women. So you can't mention affirmative action, right, if you understand it doesn't benefit us in the majority. This is also why we don't want to have other people to claim. Did you just say that white women should get reparations too? Okay, well, yeah. See, this is what I mean. This is the third stage, the stage of grief. And so let me also turn the screen back around. So people who go against reparations, right? I'm gonna show you what they're going through. This is called the 5 stages of grief. Okay, it's gonna be this is from University of Washington. 5 stages of grief. People who deny reparations or just troll about it. The first stage is denial. Second stage is anger. Third stage is bargaining. Fourth stage is depression, and the fifth stage is acceptance. So what you just saw there with the trolling, people just trolling, that is bargaining. That is them trying to buy time or them trying to lash out, and that also bleeds into anger, which is the second stage, which is lashing out. Because when you don't have a good argument, when you just want to tap out, you start trolling. See, notice how all these trolling comments, you're not seeing an actual good counter argument. Notice how I'm not really getting into the emotional arguments. I'm getting into just strictly X's and O's, ones and zeros. So, and the thing about it is that people come up with all kinds of sidebar arguments like, well, I'm a white guy and I feel like I'd be discriminated against. Well, the thing about it is that you can feel a certain way. You can't demonstrate that with hard data. I can. Tigers 5-3, 5-2. Now, if you want to have an argument about the data, then I can't have that conversation with you. That's a whole different conversation. And we're talking about reparations. You're in denial. You're also in the anger stage. So the thing about, people who lash out towards people who talk about reparations is that you will notice is that their arguments are so weak. They're so bad. Because these arguments are just regurgitations. They're just repeats. Repeats. They're just regurgitated arguments that are easy to beat because they've been out for so long that people have heard them over and over and over again, and we know how to beat them. You have to understand, right, that if you're going to argue against a claim like reparations for black descendants of American slaves, you have to actually come up with a counter argument that's going to convince me to ignore centuries of arguments. So with that being said, even if, let's say for example, there are white people who get treated badly. Sure, absolutely. But is it systemic? Is it systemic? In some white people, it says I've been passed over for jobs and everything else. Is that systemic? See, the thing about black people is that we have study after study after study that shows that it is systemic towards us. So with that being said, that means that not only do you owe, and first of all, we're not even talking about your current claims right now. We're talking about reparations for slavery. So let's move that back. If I'm going to say this right now going forward, we're talking about slavery. We're not talking about what's happened to you right now. The damage that did. There's no way you're going to enslave a people for centuries and think that doesn't cause generational damage. Doesn't matter if the people even recover, you still owe them. You still did it. Now, if you don't care that happened, then let it happen to you, and then you just don't complain. Just let bygones be bygones, right? Let bygones be bygones. And anyone who's questioning slavery in any kind of way, ban them from the chat. I don't have the time. That's the third stage of grief, bargaining. Right? Bargaining. And the thing about is people who just come into spaces and they here's the thing, right? Times have changed. The world has advanced. So back maybe 10, 15 years ago, you can show up onto a live stream and you can distract the host. You could just yell random things. But now that people have gotten used to all the trolling, it doesn't really work no more. People can just talk past it and then look into the actual argument. I'm arguing about reparations. What is your counter argument? Not what you're currently experiencing in your life, because I have no way of proving that. What is your counter argument against that claim? Right? But I guarantee you, they will never make a counter argument. Jacob Tomcat Porter. Every race has been enslaved at one point or another, so by your logic, everyone deserves reparations. Well, here's the counter argument to that. First of all, um, we're asking it from the American government. Has the American government enslaved everybody? And if you mention the Irish, I'm going to bang you from the chat. Don't say that. Wasn't true. Second thing is, we did pay reparations to the Japanese and to the Italians. So the only way I'm going to give you your counter opinion, Jacob, is if you pay me all the money that my grandmother and my grandfather had to pay for reparations towards the Japanese Americans. And then I'll give you your counter opinion. Is that fair? Sounds fair to me. Sounds very fair to me. Because that's putting your money where your mouth is. But the thing about it is, okay, if anyone's denying that Italians didn't get anything, ban them from the chat. We're not interested in that. Any kind of historical revisionism, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. People mentioning black men own slaves. Okay, ban them from the chat too. Let me explain to you the whole thing about black people owning black people. You know the reason why that was happening a lot, right? Do you understand that? Many black people were buying their own family members. That's what was happening. And I know this because I'm from South Carolina. That's where 40% of your slaves came through the Port of Charleston in South Carolina. See, that's just where this is why I know so much about it, because it directly affects my family. Now, I know for a fact that many people, and maybe not in my family, but in other families, and we all talk, they would buy their own people just to get them out of slavery. So it's very insulting when you say that without any kind of context. The vast majority of black people who were doing that, they were doing that to buy their own people out of slavery. That's a known fact. It was such a common practice. Okay? So when you start saying, what about the black people who had slaves too? Do you understand why that's a little bit insulting now? You're taking an action that was often done to get people out of bondage, and you make it into some kind of nefarious thing without any context. This is why that kind of talk is not allowed in my chat. Because not only is it insulting, it is historically inaccurate. And you will not insult me and history in my chat. Nah, bruh. So every counter argument that people try to make, when you put context behind it, there is no counter argument against reparations. There's only pay the check. Cut the check. And in fact, slave owners got reparations. Mike 21 Mike, you gotta go. Any talk about black slave owners without any context, especially when you don't name them, they get banned from the chat. What's going on, Angry Mongol? But the thing about it is that when you look at all the counter arguments being made right now, notice there are no counter arguments. Tamerlane Empire, we need to pay reparations to American Indians. See, this is what people do a lot, right? They will try to muddy up the claims, right? They will try to add up a bunch of other people that have nothing to do with slavery. Simply not. And we're not going to have that discussion here. Not in my chat. So I need for you to understand that it's for black people. We're not going to have this conversation where we start adding in all these other groups. So any talk like that, you got to get removed from the chat too. No. Because it's dishonest, and you're not even directly addressing the arguments. You're just saying, well, we got to pay them too. Even if that were the case, and that's not the case, but even if that were the case, that doesn't prove my argument wrong. It doesn't prove my argument wrong. Angry Mongol, absolutely. Send me the friend code, and I will play you sometimes. The thing about it is that when you look at logical arguments, and you look at how people make logical arguments, this is why when you talk about reparations, most times the counter arguments is just trolling. It's just trolling. It's just trolling. It's never an actual counter argument Whereas people people can defeat the argument. Like, here's my base argument: reparations should be paid, and I want you just to hear me out. Hear out my complete argument for reparations. We're not about it's not about solving an issue. It's rectifying a problem. It's you did something, therefore this should happen based on a precedent. Now, I'm going to explain this in such a way, whereas if you don't get the point, you're trying to not get the point. I'm going to say that. I'm going to state that. And I'm not going to change my mind on that because I'm going to explain this deeply. The reason why black descendants of American slaves deserve reparations is because we built the country. Even Donald Trump is on record saying that. On the record. Reparations were paid out to Native Americans. They have casinos, they have reservations, and people say, oh, they're not the greatest. Okay, fine. I don't care. They got them. Italian Americans did too. Slave owners did too. And so did Japanese Americans. These are all facts. It doesn't matter if you don't like them. Those are the baseline facts. Now that part of what I just said had no opinion in it. This is all basic facts. We built the country. Every infrastructure in terms of anything that's heavy industry, agriculture, you know agriculture. I mean, some of the top companies in this country all came as a result, directly or indirectly, from slave labor. You can't talk around it. Now, everything that I just said is a fact. I haven't gotten to the opinion part of it yet. I just stated that other groups were getting paid. White people got land in the West and the Midwest, just like MLK said in his speech about coming to Washington to get our check. And things like nobody alive today is a slave, that ignores what we're talking about in terms of the generational effects and the damage done. Right? You got rich off of the things that we did. And if you don't like that, then all the land that was given to white people, give it back then. Right? But if you don't actually, Shaquille Jacobson, you have over 1,000 followers. Let's hop on to the guest request. And I don't want to hear the excuses. Oh, you muted. Oh, I want to get him to the guest request. I want to get them into the guest request. I want to have a conversation. I want to talk. Let's talk. Let's have the conversation. Come on. No? Shaquille Jacobson, do you want to talk? I mean, I invited you on. Oh, now required. See, you see what I mean? When you actually call them out and challenge them, they just run. How about we get you a plane ticket? A plane ticket. For what? Bino Lex Smith says they took our lands, our lives, our humanity. Yep, yeah, absolutely. 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 The U.S. government allowed, encouraged, and enforced the specific enslavement of Africans. Therefore, specifically, their descendants should get rep. Yeah, absolutely. I'm at work. Nope. Well, then, if you're at work, then go back to work and don't be on live streams while you're at work. That doesn't make your boss look very, very good, and therefore, you got to get out of my live stream. See, people love doing that, right? They love doing that. They love showing up to the live stream, and they will have over 1,000 followers. Therefore, they can jump into the guest request, but they never will because they understand that they are trolling. They understand that. You see, think about it is that most people, most content creators can't just hop on and do what I just did. I just freestyle the whole thing. How many people do you know can go on and on and on like this and actually stay on point and actually respond to trolls and win every time? Not many. So when that's the case, all you can do is troll. Now, with that being said, if you look at the transatlantic slave trade and you look at chattel slavery in this country as a whole. For the most part, people, when they try to make their counter arguments, you notice a weird thing is that it's never linked to the actual event. Or they try to link it to some other country. Like, well, everybody around the world was slaves. Imagine if you go to a courtroom, right, and you would have gotten paid restitution because you were a victim of an actual crime. But then the judge says, well, somebody in China was assaulted, therefore you don't deserve to get paid out. That makes no sense. Or these people will show up and says, well, I think that my great grandparents were slaves. Should I get paid? And then when you look into their lineage, you find out, oh no, you weren't the slave. Your mother, your great grandmother was a slave, but then your great grandfather was a slave master who doesn't understand consent. See, when you start looking into these people's claims, that's what makes it so insulting. And these people are very well aware of all these facts. Very well aware. They know. They know. And that goes back to the whole Irish slave thing, right? It says, well, we were Irish slaves. We were Irish slaves. And when you look into the history, it's either a lie or they were slave masters. And if you have a lineage, if you are black, if you are considered black, and you can trace your lineage to the census, and you come from Black American slavery, you qualify for reparations. Now, that doesn't include everyone from the diaspora, but that's what it was always going to be. That's what it was always going to be. It wasn't going to be 100% of black people who were going to get reparations in the first place. That is a silly lie that people are pushing now to try to cause division. It was never going to be like that from the beginning. And we all know that. So the fact that people are playing silly now is quite funny. Quite funny. But the thing is that as it stands, California is going to be paying out allegedly $223,000 per black descendant of American slaves, and they're doing the exact same thing across the country. That's going to be replicated in many states. And over the next 10 to 20 years, you're going to see maybe, I would say, probably 6 to 7 states approve reparations in some form. In some form. So with that being said, you will be very surprised as what's coming into the future. We're going to get our chips, y'all. We're going to get our paper. And I'm happy to see it. Because I love black people. We suffered a lot. Doesn't mean that other people haven't suffered, but we certainly have. And it's time that we get our due. It's time that we get our due. That doesn't mean that we're going to hate on anybody else. Hey, we got nothing but love for everybody else. Especially foundational black Americans, freedmen, black descendants of American slaves. We are known to not hate us. We are known to not hate on anybody. Get your paper, get your chips. We just want we just want our slice now. We don't want to share with anybody else. We just want our slice right now. Right? And that's all. Guys, it's been great. Thank you for joining me. Hey, listen, I'm going to be doing some more live streams about reparations. I'm going to give you guys some more updates. I'm clicked in with some of the reparations task force across the country. I got eyes and ears out there looking for me. And I love you guys. Be safe. Until next time, horns up, peace out. Good night and good luck.